Welcome to Wandering Jews at J Squared Adventures. Travel far enough and you meet yourself. We're your hosts.
I'm Scott Copeland.
I'm Rivka Brahma.
For 2,000 years, the Jews of Morocco lived under the Crescent moon, the symbol crowning the mosques, the palaces, and the public spaces of the kingdom. Yet this was not totally foreign, because Jews follow a rhythm, a calendar that's lunar and solar, while Islam follows a lunar rhythm. And so there is a kind of a shared cultural imagination of time.
Within this shared lunar world, Jewish life unfolds through continual tides and flows, tides, periods of limitations and opportunity, fragility and creativity.
Jewish life in Morocco stretches back more than 2,000 years. Early settlers arrived from the Roman world, later Jews fleeing the destruction of the Second Temple, 70 CE, and later still, expulsions from Iberia, Spain, and Portugal. The expelled found new homes in Morocco and across North Africa. One could say that there are kind of four core frameworks that shaped the Jewish experience in Morocco.
So the first one is the dhimmi system. Jews and Christians were dhimmi, protected people, granted security and freedom of worship, but required to maintain a posture of humility. Like, you're protected, but don't get it up to your head.
Because a lot of that was connected with the idea that Islam saw Judaism and Christianity as monotheisms.
Right.
But imperfect, flawed. So they deserve tolerance, but they're not equal. Let's not get carried away.
I think it resonates a lot when we ask ourselves today, as Jews, what does it mean to be a proud Jew?
100%. Morocco also developed its own version of communal organizations. I mean, Jews who came from Europe, we have the idea of the ghetto. From Eastern Europe, the idea of the shtetl. And in Morocco, the idea of the Mellah, a designated Jewish quarter that was a lot of times, it was adjacent to the area of the royal palace and its compound.
Right. So the Mellah usually are very close to the sovereign. The term Mellah likely derives from the Arabic root of melach, salt, or salting, referring not to salt trading in general, but to salt store maintained by the royal household. Salt is an ancient commodity and is valuable as gold, and it was essential for preserving food, obviously, at the palaces. So the Jewish quarter bordered with these royal salt deposits, and it came to be known as the melach. So until today, when you walk around Morocco in the towns, the melach is the Jewish section.
Later, there was this addition of a kind of symbolic meaning, this idea of salt as something valuable, this idea of salt as a symbol of welcoming, maybe also as a symbol of endurance, of permanence, maybe of shared covenant.
There's also something about salt that until you taste something without it, you don't realize that it's gone. And I think a lot of non-Jewish Moroccans will say that sometimes when you walk around the empty streets. You know what? It's weird without the Jewish community here. Maybe we're lacking a little bit of oomph, of taste. So like the Ottoman millet system, Moroccan governments structured minority groups as semi-autonomous communities.
And in Morocco, again, obviously Morocco was not a democracy in the modern Western sense by any stretch of the imagination. Throughout the centuries, there was a blending of Islamic law, later of French civil law, from the colonial so-called protectorate period that really lasted up until the middle of the 20th century, the older traditions connected with the monarchy, and all kinds of local customs, each town and city, each different clan. This blending, this milkshake, created the legal landscape that Morocco still honors today.
It really makes you think about the tension between expressing your Jewish distinctiveness and navigating one's place within hierarchy. It's something that still resonates today, but across the region, the Mellah, much like ghettos elsewhere, functions as a protective space and as a place that we can present ourselves as we are. But on the other hand, when you step out of the Mellah, you step out of the ghetto, you really don't want to be maybe too Jewish, or you want to make sure that you understand where you are in the hierarchy?
And this dynamic of kind of self-questioning, checking where the borders are, when am I in, when am I out, when am I allowed to, over the generations, this kind of helped shape maybe a Jewish cultural instinct. On the one hand, the desire to live proudly as Jews, but also learning when to temper that, when to hold back, when outside or outward expressions of pride within the surrounding social order might be acceptable or might be totally unacceptable.
So to explore that dynamics, we have different manifestations of it. Let's explore 3 different synagogues in 3 different regions in Morocco to explore Jewish and non-Jewish relationships. So let's go to Fez. Let's go to Ibn Danan Synagogue. Ibn Danan is in the Melach of Fez. Jewish life in Fez has developed according to principle that we might call the design of discretion. Modest exteriors concealing exquisite inner worlds. Outside, it looks very regular, but inside, you will see a fascinating, beautiful Jewish existence.
So when you're standing in the street from the outside, the synagogue presents a very kind of understated facade, plain, unadorned doorway set into the narrow alleyways of the Mela. No signage, no architectural or decorative elements announcing this is a synagogue or this is a sacred space. There's an architectural humility or modesty, we used the word before, shaped by the constraints and the expectations of the dhimmi system.
So only upon crossing the modest threshold does the building reveals its hidden world, a sanctuary that bursts with artistic confidence, deep green tiles, carved cedar ceilings, and the architectural vocabulary of Moroccan courtly culture. All the things that when you close your eyes and you think of Morocco are inside that synagogue. It's very Moroccan, and it's also very, very Jewish.
So the synagogue takes its name from the Ibn Danan family, a respected rabbinic dynasty whose leadership spanned the 19th and through the mid-20th century. The Ibn Danan family origins trace back to 15th century Granada. The building was constructed in the 17th century by Mimun Bousidan, but the family's long stewardship made their name inseparable from the synagogue itself.
So when you walk into the synagogue, one of the biggest showstoppers, basically, is the monumental carved wooden Torah ark, a wall-spanning ark framed by intricate plasterwork and Moroccan tile work. It's pretty big.
This huge kind of wall-spanning ark, you also find the wrought iron bima, a central bima, not at the front of the synagogue, like is popular in modern Ashkenazi synagogues. Many of the synagogues probably that we come from in places like Boston or New York.
You come from.
Right. San Francisco or even in Europe. Here, the Sephardic tradition, the central bima, it's topped by a kind of a canopy of Islamic-style arches and floral motifs. Again, very much reflecting that classic Sephardic synagogue layout.
And the third very interesting piece is the red embroidered cloth, the parochet, a cloth of a Star of David and Hebrew text, almost certainly a modern addition from 1996 or 1999 restoration, because we know that the Star of David wasn't used very early on in Moroccan Jewish history.
So the Ibn Danan had deteriorated severely by the late 20th century. And as Rivka just mentioned, there was a renewal or a restoration. 1996, the World Monuments Watch led a major restoration, and it was funded by a number of bodies. The World Monuments Fund itself, American Express, okay?
Who knew?
Who knew? Morocco's Ministry of Culture and the Judeo-Moroccan Heritage Foundation. This reflected a kind of a broader national and even international movement to preserve Morocco's Jewish heritage.
But whenever we walk to non-active synagogues, when we travel as a group, there's always a question about who takes care of this place, who is responsible for it. And Morocco, I think, is a very nice blend of the state itself taking responsibility, the former Jews who no longer live there but feel connected to the place and want to preserve it, and understanding that it's not only about Jewish, but it's a cultural heritage that we want to keep as a something for the generations to see. But for me, it's always a little bit sad to go and see that there's so much work and money poured into a synagogue that basically right now, nobody really actively uses. And beneath the sanctuary of Ibn Danan, there's a small mikveh, a quiet reminder that Moroccan synagogues often house the full Jewish cycle of Jewish communal life, from birth to death, not only prayer, but ritual of renewal and belonging. And maybe there's also a myth that the conversos who came from Spain wanted to rejoin the Jewish community after they might have declared themselves Christians, had to do a ritual bath and go into the mikveh at this very mikveh at the Ibn Danan Fez synagogue.
So just to remind us in terms of the historic timeline, when we talk about the conversos, or in Hebrew, the anusim, those who were forced, we're talking about the expulsions from Spain in 1492, and then later the exit of Jews from Portugal and really coming to North Africa and all across the Mediterranean, this period of several hundred years of the growth of what becomes a very vibrant, large also, Sephardic diaspora.
Yeah.
So again, in terms of contextualizing, those of you who have not yet visited Morocco, and I certainly hope you'll have the experience, but have visited Tel Aviv, you've likely been at the Anu Museum, the Museum of the Jewish People. And if you were there, you recall the models of synagogues from all around the world, including a beautiful model of the Ibn Danan synagogue at Anu.
Because today, the Jewish population in Fez is 150 Jews, but at its height, in the late 1940s, Fez Jewish population reached approximately 22,000, including about 15,000 residents of the Melach.
If we leave Fez and we continue to Marrakesh, we'll visit a second synagogue, Slat al Azama, and the refugees' Riyadh. Before the arrival of the Magorashim, of the exiles from Spain moving out to North Africa, following 1492, Marrakesh already had an established Jewish community dating back at least to the 13th century. It was composed primarily of indigenous Jews, sometimes referred to as the Toshavim, the residents.
The originals.
The originals.
The
and that sense of the veterans and the new immigrants and their meeting was very much part of the story of Jewish life in Marrakesh.
In 1948, the Magorashim, Jews expelled from Spain, arrived in Morocco with the trauma of expulsion. Their Marrakesh synagogue, Slat al Azama, whose name means the prayer of the expelled, or the outcast, a title reflecting its foundation by Jews exiled from Spain, reflects a journey from displacement to reconstruction. In 1492, the Magorashim, the Jews expelled from Spain, arrived in Morocco with the trauma of expulsion. The Marrakesh synagogue, Slat al Azama, whose name means the prayer of the expelled, or the outcast, a title reflecting its foundation by Jews exiled from Spain, reflects a journey from displacement to reconstruction. Basically reminding us that trauma of expulsion is something that never leaves you.
For sure. The building itself, the synagogue, it forms a Riyadh-style sanctuary, right? When we talk about a Riyadh, we're talking about that traditional Moroccan architectural form, which centers on an inward-facing courtyard. This design not only offered protection from sun, it offered privacy, but it also resonated with the memories and built environments, the architecture that the exiled carried from Muslim Spain, where similar Andalusian courtyard homes with their central patios very much shaped Jewish domestic and communal life, organized around this open courtyard. And again, those of us who have had the opportunity to visit places like Cordoba, places like Granada, we can see these courtyards all throughout the old towns. And in the Jewish case, prayer unfolding under the open sky, connecting worshipers with the lunar rhythms shared across Moroccan Jewish religious life, and of course, in Islam as well.
So today, and when I go to synagogue, most of the prayers are done inside, indoors. The only times that we actually go outside is we go bless the Luna, the Yareach, the moon, and the Tfilat Levana, and that's when we go outside, or sometimes when we go dance outside on Simchat Torah with the Torahs. But it's very much an indoor experience, and I think there, I'm not sure how much was done inside and how much was done outside, but the very fact that the architecture is around something that's not covered says something about maybe connecting to nature, connecting to the wild, connecting to the outside, and the relationship between praying and being part of the community.
Nice. I mean, maybe one of the differences in the example you're bringing is the difference between in a synagogue in 21st, what century are we in? 21st century Jerusalem. So you go outside. We don't even think about it. In the period when this synagogue was being used, let's say in the late Middle Ages, moving up to the modern period, they didn't go out to the street. Again, they went outside, meaning they went into that central courtyard.
Yes.
And it was open to the sky. And it goes back to that first thing we talked about of what are the borders? You know, how do I express on the one side pride, freedom, desire to express myself? But on the other hand, keep it within the frameworks that are acceptable within the confines of a community where Jewish life is accepted but tolerated.
Right. So the fluid boundaries between the domestic and the sacred, basically, because the synagogue was incorporated into a larger residential structure built around a central courtyard, but daily life and worship were never entirely separated, right? It's inside a house. You go to prayers 3 times a day. It's not separate from your life. You don't go once a year only. It's basically supposed to be part of your daily life. The tikim, the upright cylindrical Torah cases, traditionally used by Jews of North Africa, are wooden or metal cases that fully encase the Torah scroll, often decorated with carved geometric motifs, velvet panel, or silver ornaments. They open on hinges, so the scroll may be read while it's standing upright. It's very different than the Ashkenazi Torah, where you kind of bend over it. This is something that's open in the height of your face. We recommend trying reading from both sometimes. See how you feel.
Marrakesh, maybe it also highlights Morocco's distinctive culture of saints, a shared Jewish-Muslim beliefscape in which revered figures, Kedoshim in Hebrew and Salichin in Arabic, were visited for blessing, protection, and healing. In this cultural world, the most beloved Marrakesh Kadosh was Rabbi Pinchas HaKohen, renowned for his humility and his kindness.
So a well-known story and a local tradition about Rabbi Pinchas is that he saved the life of the powerful Pasha Tahimi el-Galawi, nicknamed the Black Panther. We love that name. Other which the Pasha granted his enduring protection to the Jewish community because he saved his life. These shared pilgrimage traditions reveals how Marrakesh Jews lived within a broader Moroccan culture of holy figures whose influence crossed communal boundaries. The idea that there's a saint or a kadosh or someone that is protecting you, and when you have a important day of your life, when you have a big test, when you are going into labor, your Moroccan grandma will light a candle for Rabbi Meir Balanes or Rabbi Pinchas and say, with his virtue, you will succeed. So I think it's a different world of living with an open communication to your dead. It's very different than sometimes the Western world thinks about. There's a clear cut between people who are here and people who are not. There's a dialogue. We talk to them. They talk to us. There's also a very ancient tradition of dead people coming to people in dreams where people will talk about it as very important and will take it seriously and will listen to what they have to say. And maybe make decisions according to a message that they received from a loved one coming to them in a dream.
We talk about Marrakesh. Well, let's say just a word about population as we did with Fez. So the Jewish community of Marrakesh was really at its height in the late 1940s. It could be that as many as 40,000 people were living in the Mellah in Marrakesh. Today, the once large community has dwindled to around 200 Jews, residing in the city at large and in the area of the Mellah.
But the third place we want to visit is Casablanca. Casablanca is very different than Fez. Fez is the city of Chachamim, of people who are scholars. Marrakesh is the city of miracles and tradition. And Casablanca is much more an international city. It's just a little bit more than Rick Cafes and Humphrey Bogart, but it does have that international vibe because of the port to the Atlantic, and because the Jews sat there were very much more involved with Western world because of the trade coming in and out from the sea.
And in that sense, the sanctuary reflects that. It's a more modern synagogue, and it reflects the relative wealth of the community based on a community that was all about trade, capital, and a city that was very much the center of the economic life of Morocco. When you go into the sanctuary, the temple Beth El, it reveals an elegant yet understated exterior, blending early 20th century Moroccan geometric motifs with modern design elements. It was a purpose-built structure. It was completed fairly recently, 1949, and it was not a renovation of an older synagogue.
Since its founding, the Bet El Synagogue has served continuously as the Casablanca's central house of worship, hosting daily services, life cycle events, and once famed mixed choir before the shift in religious leadership in the 1960s. It used to be a male-female choir, which now I think most Moroccan Jews will look at strangely. In recent decades, thanks to a major 1997 restoration and ongoing communal support, it has remained one of the few fully active synagogues in Morocco. Welcoming both local worshippers and visitors from around the world. A lot of our groups go there and feel very welcome. Casablanca Temple Beth El represents the confidence of a modern, urban Jewish community.
And again, in terms of the population, when we look at the height of the Casablanca community in the 1940s, we could be talking as many as 70,000 people. And again, a scale that was made possible by the city's status as Morocco's New York or Morocco's Tel Aviv. It was a major economic center, and it was also a magnet for Jewish immigrants coming from other places in the country seeking the opportunities that Casablanca as a city could afford them.
So Bet El stands as the centerpiece of a city that once hosted more than 30 synagogues. Its stained glass and crafts details reflecting the vitality of Jewish life in Morocco, the blooming economic capital. For its constructions in 1949 through the late 20th century, Beth El thrived as a hub for daily prayer, Shabbat services, weddings, bar mitzvahs, and communal celebration that drew thousands from Casablanca's bustling Jewish neighborhoods. You know, I'm sure a lot of shidduchim happened there. A lot of candies were thrown at bar mitzvah kids, and you can walk around and ask people who made Aliyah from Morocco or moved to another city if they remember Beth El Synagogue, and a lot of them would say, yes, I was there.
Even today, despite the community's demographic decline, today we're talking about approximately 5,000 Jews living in Casablanca. The synagogue remains one of Morocco's most active synagogue, as we mentioned. It really is a kind of a living anchor of Jewish continuity in the city. And like synagogues in other big cities, that again, we can think about other places we visited, we can think about synagogues that we know from the areas that we grew up in. It reflects the self-assured spirit of a modern urban Jewish community and also serves as a central landmark of the city.
The design actually shows that. The interior stained glasses look a little bit Chagall-esque as we know them. The vibrant color, the grand chandeliers suspended from the high ceiling, the carved white and gold plasterwork that blends really Moroccan craftsmanship, but also having an international vibe. One
thing which you probably won't find in many synagogues around the world, but you definitely do find in Temple Beit El in Casablanca, is at the center of the synagogue hangs a portrait of King Mohammed V, who stands during World War II, the Vichy period, the French collaborationist government that worked with the Nazis, 1940 to 1942. The stance of the king became a defining moment in Moroccan Jewish memory. And King Mohammed V is famously remembered as stating, when asked about the Jews in Morocco, their status, And would the king and the royal house collaborate with the Vichy government? He said, quote, "There are no Jews in Morocco. There are only Moroccan subjects."
Amazing. Although ruling under French protector and the constraints under the French, he rejected the imposition of the Vichy racial status on Morocco. Jews were affirmed publicly and symbolically that Moroccan Jews were under his protection as equal subjects of the throne. The protective stance became a symbolic mezuzah, a guardian of the threshold.
Beit El embodies then the modern expression of the enduring covenant and link between the Moroccan royal house, the Moroccan throne, and the Moroccan Jewish community.
To follow the story of Moroccan Jewry across Fez, Marrakesh, and Casablanca is to trace people who lived within the rhythm of a kingdom, reflected in law, architecture, memory, and spiritual imagination.
In Fez, the hidden doorway of Ibn Danan opens into a world of quiet grandeur, revealing how Jews navigated the modesty required by the dhimmi system while cultivating a rich inner life of beauty and devotion.
And in Marrakesh, Slat al Azama embodied the rebirth of displaced people, infusing Andalusian memory into a Riyadh-style sanctuary open to the heavens, alongside a local culture that honored Kedoshim and Salihim alike.
And in Casablanca, the soaring light of Beit El captured the confidence of a 20th century community rooted in tradition and modern identity.
Together, these synagogues form a constellation across Morocco. 3 distinctive structures, 3 different histories, yet all illuminated by the same crescent moon under which Moroccan Jews lived, prayed, and imagined their future. Their story is not only one of endurance, but of continual adaptation, weaving exile, homecoming, modesty, and magnificence, separations, and shared cultural worlds.
Like the waxing and the waning of the moon itself, Moroccan Jewish life moved through cycles of ebb and flow, but its light never disappeared. It shimmered in courtyard, in Mela, in marketplaces, and still shines in Morocco today, and through the descendants of Morocco's Jews who now live in Israel and in communities all around the world.
When we picture a synagogue, what do we truly see? Is it the intimate, inwarding-facing beauty of Moroccan craftsmanship, carved wood and courtyards open to the sky, or a grand, forward-facing halls of familiar European Jewry? Both forms express a shared truth, that a synagogue is not only defined by its architecture, but by the relationships and intention within it. Just like the cherubites or the kuvim in front of the ark are supposed to be both facing the ark, but also facing and looking each other. The idea that you are holy and you can focus on a holy idea, but you really, really need someone else, the other, to be with you in that holy moment. And I think every synagogue should embellish that small, very precise point when you're looking at someone else, but you're also looking at the holy place.
And now, something for the road. A tip, a recommendation to help you make every journey your own.
So shalom to you all. My name is Ishai Shavit, and I am a tour educator. I'm a tour educator who loves working in Israel and outside of Israel with the J Square Adventured. And I love especially taking groups to Morocco. Morocco is an unbelievable country. You just learned a little bit about the synagogues and the rich Jewish culture and heritage. Morocco used to have just more than 250,000 Jews living there in 1948 when Israel was established, and later on, way less. Today, it's not entirely clear how many Jews are living in Morocco, but no more than 2,000. Now, when I take groups to Morocco, I try not to focus only on the rich Jewish life that was there. I'm very much interested in contemporary Jewish life in Morocco and of Moroccan Jews who still see themselves part of the Jewish Moroccan community, even though they live in Ashdod, Israel, Montreal, Canada, or Paris, France. They still have a picture of the king in their living room sometimes. They all have a picture of the tzaddik, the righteous Jewish man or woman, from their hometown in Morocco. So I love talking about those kinds of things, but at the end of the day, we also want to expose people to how people live, how Jews live in Morocco today. So we always try to go and have a meeting or sometimes even a meal with one of the local Jewish residents of Casablanca, where most Jews live. For example, there is a lovely, lovely lady named Dorit, and she hosts us in her living room sometimes for a talk and lunch or dinner. But Dorit is only one of the 1,500, more or less, Jews living in Casablanca. There are others. And what is so interesting is that there is no way for you to know who is Jewish and who is not as you walk in the streets of Casablanca. There are Jews, of course, with the kippah, yarmulke, walking in the streets. No problems with that. Okay, but there are others who are not wearing a yarmulke, and you cannot really tell who is who. And the relationship between the Jews and the Muslims in Casablanca is very interesting. That's why I would like to recommend a movie. A wonderful movie called Morocco. Now, please pay attention. It spells differently. Okay? M-A-R-O-C-K. Morocco. And this is a movie that deals with a love affair. A love affair between a Muslim young woman and a Jewish young man in Casablanca in 2005. Okay? This is a movie for those of you who want to break stereotypes. Of those of you who really want to understand what does it mean to live in Casablanca and being Jewish nowadays. So Morocco, sorry it's in French, okay, but I believe that you'll be able to find subtitles for this movie. And I seriously recommend watching it, not necessarily before you go to Morocco, maybe after your visit. So I'm really waiting to meet you guys in Casablanca and show you around. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Dive deeper into the world of travel on our J Squared Adventures website. That's jsquaredadventures.com. And stay in the loop with our latest adventures on all our social media platforms. Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, all under J2 Adventures.
And if you enjoyed hanging out with us, don't forget to leave us a comment, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Until next time, travel safely and keep wondering. I'm Rivka.
I'm Scott. See you soon at J Squared Adventures, Wandering Jews.